All right, so we're going to talk about the intersection of crypto and AI, and there's a lot there. And fortunately for us, we have people building across all of the subcategories in crypto AI. And I'll let you guys introduce yourself to the crowd and maybe an introduction to what you're building in the space. I guess we can start with Ejaaz.
Cool. Yeah. My name's Ejaaz. I run a fund that invests in a bunch of crypto and AI companies. I also research this space pretty much day in and day out, and I talk about it on a podcast called Bankless every week.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yuhu. I'm the founder of Kaito AI. Many people probably know about Kaito through Yaps, and that's an info-flight network that we built over the past 6 months. But over the past 3 years, also built one of the most widely used intelligence platform in crypto that's specifically in the AI sector. So happy to share our experience across both sectors.
My name is Casey. I run a fund that invests across frontier tech, but a large focus is the intersection of crypto and AI.
Hey, hi everybody. I'm Sreeram, founder of a protocol called EigenLayer. Recently, we announced the evolution of EigenLayer into EigenCloud. EigenCloud is a developer platform where people can build crypto apps with cloud scale programmability. So you can write any program you can write on a cloud with crypto grade verifiability. So what we want to do is to massively expand the set of things that are programmable. What we are known for is restaking, staking ETH in our platform. That's what most people know us for. We have 12 billion plus of ETH in our platform, making us the third largest crypto protocol.
That's awesome. So I want to start at a high level here. There's obviously been a lot of noise in the crypto AI space. Maybe just start like really high level. Where do you guys see the alpha? What's real? What's fake? What are you guys are most excited about at this intersection? Whoever wants to take it. Probably the investors. We'll start with the investors.
Yeah, I'll start.
They have opinions.
There's a lot that's real. I actually think this is one of the most popular questions. It's how do we separate signal from noise? And I think the most helpful thing for all these audiences is to be as concrete as possible. And so I'll just start by giving one example, but there are so many. But about a year and a half ago at this point, the most popular category was distributed compute. So distributed inference, distributed training is becoming a lot more popular in this era. But there was a lot of debate on if like the Uber for inference would make any sense or the crowdsourced inference. And I'll just tell you now, after this last wave, it is actually working. Like one of our portfolio companies literally just won a contract against Google last week for a huge ACV. And the reason is because they can provide inference at a fraction of the cost. So it's not even about the ideology of crypto. It's not about the privacy. It's about the fact that they can offer inference at a stupidly low price compared to what the centralized providers are willing to take as a margin. And so I'm not commenting on how that scales or what that looks like in the future, but just concretely we're seeing that.
Hey, Jazz?
Yeah, I think in order to figure out where's best to invest in crypto and AI, it's good to look at it from a lens of just traditional AI as its own, right? So what Casey just mentioned just now is on the compute and inference side. And there are two other major buckets as well, right? There's the data side, and then there's the app layer as well. Now, I kind of try and spend equal parts looking at both, right? So AI and crypto AI. The Web 2 companies on the consumer app side are kind of seeing the same struggles that Web 3 is seeing right now. So there isn't quite an AI agent that's cracked it quite yet. And I use that example of an AI agent because the pitch or the common thesis that we see is these AI apps are going to manifest into you just interacting with some kind of agent. So there's a question of how that UX develops and all that kind of thing. Now, the infrastructure side is where it gets super interesting. On the Web 2 side, it's like, okay, we'll build a bunch of chips, we'll centralize compute, and we can train all these models on there. On the Web 3 side, they're taking some really interesting angles. Now, I was incredibly bearish, like Casey just said, on distributed compute networks. We actually discussed this a bunch of times. I'm now more bullish on it, but with a slight dose of variance here. I think a lot of people are talking about compute networks in crypto being able to train foundational base models. So this is like launching the next ChatGPT. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but I'm really excited about post-training, which is basically where you can take a model like whatever OpenAI's model, or maybe a better example is Meta's Llama model, and then fine-tune it, which means specify it to do something really niche and useful. And I think that's where Web3 really kind of like thrives when you attach it to maybe a deep-end network or a network with that incentivizes certain behavior. So I think infrastructure right now is the hottest commodity, but I'm still the most bullish on apps, which is on the agent side. But it's just going to take a bit more time to pan out, I think.
Yeah, but before we jump into the app side, I would love to know a little bit more about what you guys think about the infrastructure side at the intersection of crypto and AI. You know, Kaito uses, obviously, the infrastructure for your application. What's your take being an actual user of that infrastructure?
Question to me?
Yes.
So I think, so without talking about the app side, obviously Kaito built two apps right now. One is Kaito Pro, which is intelligence platform, is AI-powered search engine in crypto. The other thing is App Leaderboard. But I think the experience of building apps has led us to a lot of the thoughts and just struggles in a way that as we think about the future, as we think about the future of a relationship between human and AI, a lot of the problems needs to be solved. And I can give you some examples, and that's on the infrastructure level. So as we build out, for example, Yap Leaderboard, and nowadays everyone's probably have seen that on their Twitter timeline, there's so many AI slops and all that kind of stuff. And that's not just a Twitter-specific issue. You actually have AI-generated content across all the major social platforms, TikTok, Instagram, all this kind of stuff. And specifically, it's very difficult to verify. So some of the AI slops are easy to identify, but they keep getting better. Over time, some of the video-generated content that you just can't tell anymore in terms of whether it's actually just a piece of low-quality content or is actually real human kind of generating a lot of stuff. From an infrastructure perspective, there is a lack of coordination across all the social medias because they don't want to work with each other. And it's very difficult to set up that reputation layer across all the social media platforms. And then at the same time, it is actually presenting a tremendous amount of opportunity for crypto to come in here as the permissionless layer to essentially do a lot of this stuff. A very concrete example, as we think about Yap Leaderboard, it's relatively easy for the AI bot to essentially spin off a new account and gather some of the reputation within the context of Twitter. But once you enforce the reputation to be across multiple social platforms, even including on-chain reputation, then it becomes exponentially harder. And I think that this is where, from an infrastructure perspective, I think crypto has a unique opportunity to be the permissionless layer, to verify a lot of the stuff, to be providing a whole new layer that's completely permissionless, that allows every developer to essentially tap into without asking for permission from every single major social media platform. Because at the end of the day, as we think about the future, I think the internet is going to be increasingly siloed. It just, unfortunately, I think that's going to happen. And then one of the major value proposition for XAI is basically the unique capability of tapping into Twitter data. And I think that in the future is going to be the case, and it's up to all of us to essentially come up with something else that can essentially tap into all this stuff in a more permissionless way.
I heard something about verifiability. Sreeram, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think like as we make AI systems central to society, which absolutely is happening as they become more and more intelligent, we want to delegate more and more of societal decision making and our own agency to these agents. They're going to be capped even right now. Like the utility of these agents is capped by the amount of trust that we have on them or that we need to place on them. And to the extent that they can actually be made verifiable, you don't need to trust them. And I think that's like a huge, huge benefit. So, AI has a trust problem as you get scale more and more into society. You need to trust these things, and crypto can be the verifiability platform for a lot of these AIs. Whether it's proof of human versus proof of agent, whether it's an agent is doing what it said it's doing, whether an agent got rugged behind your back. Like Eric Schmidt recently wrote a thing saying, imagine your kid is talking to an agent and the agent's being updated behind your back. Like, is that what's the consequences of that? And I think crypto as being the verifiability layer makes a lot of sense. So that's on the one side. The other side, a superpower of crypto is sovereignty, right? So we think of Bitcoin as sovereign money, self-sovereign money. You own your destiny. And you think about AI and sovereignty for AI. Actually, so there's a very interesting exchange between Microsoft CEO Satya and on a podcast with Dwarkesh, where the podcast host asks him, hey, do you think AI is like a new species? Right? And he says, yeah, even my head of AI, Mustafa Suleiman, he says that, but I don't think so, because at the end, these AI agents are operating on human delegation, because they can't own property. It's your property that you're kind of delegating to them. They can't start companies, they can't take liabilities, they can't engage in contracts. Our legal infrastructure doesn't give agents a first-class status. This is what he said. And I think the answer to this problem is precisely crypto, right? So why is that? If you think about what a smart contract is a smart contract is a program owning property, right? It's like, think of EigenLayer. EigenLayer is a program, and it owns $12 billion of ETH. And it can do what it said it will do with it, because it's a fixed program. Now you think of, imagine I can take an AI agent and write it like a smart contract, something rigid that I can just put it on chain. And it can decide its own self-evolution, upgrades, everything. So you can have fully sovereign agents. That's the other thing that crypto can do. It be the natively digital infrastructure on top of which fully sovereign agents are created. I don't think there is any other paradigm in which that can happen. So that I see as the two big interfaces for what is real. I think Casey here pointed out, and Ejaaz too, the decentralization aspects. I talked about verifiability, sovereignty. There's also decentralization, and decentralization is we can bring decentralized resources to bear to cut costs, to disintermediate, to make it easy. So I think those three value propositions.
Very cool. I'm very interested in the agent conversation. Again, a place where we have to separate signal and noise. Perhaps we can go back to the investors on the panel. What are you guys seeing in the agent space specifically? It was very hot. I think it might have fallen out of favor. Perhaps it's coming back. What does that look like?
We're both big fans of agents, definitely, right, Ejaaz?
Definitely.
And I think that it's evolved. Like when you think about I can give a brief history of what's worked so far and where we are today. So the big thing that worked was personality agents. Everybody probably knows that in the room. Nobody saw that coming. Like everybody thought a trading agent, I don't want to say everybody. I think the common understanding in my friend group was like a trading agent was going to reach PMF first. What ended up happening was that these Twitter accounts, which were not real people, ended up being able to amass so much attention. And attention really is the scarcest resource in the world these days. And so that really took the industry by storm. And then they had their peak, and who knows what's going to happen on that. But I think of that as like a separate category in my mind. And then you think of like agentic tools, which have still not fully come to fruition. In my mind, the most successful agent is 100% OpenAI deep research. I think people don't think of it as an agent, but it is. It is absolutely going out and looking at different sources and coming back and distilling that. And so that's where we are today. I am like super, super bullish on this new project called Dawn, which I invested in a few months ago, actually the beginning of the year. And they're building like a MCP aggregator to do crypto native tasks. And just as somebody who spends way too many nights in that basement, I will tell you that also is gonna work. It doesn't, we are like so close but the tech has gotten so good, and so I am like a huge agent bull.
Yes.
Okay, so addressing the elephant in the room, AI agents had a massive boom and a disgusting bust, right? So they blew up, everyone lost a lot of money, myself included, and we learned a lot of lessons. So the question now is, what lessons have we learned? Number one question on most people's mind is, was this entirely a fad? My simple answer is no. I can give you a quick example. So Casey just said she loves OpenAI's deep research feature, right? I also love it. But you know what I love more? Anthropic's research feature. And the reason why I like Anthropic's new research feature, it's basically deep research, it's the same thing, but it uses 5 agents on the back end. And they released this entire paper of how it works and why they use these different agents. And the long story short is it made it way more expressive. So if you could just give it a single prompt and it would go about and debate amongst itself, right? And there's loads of different chain of thought reasonings and stuff like that. But anyway, without getting too much into the technicals, let's bring it back to crypto, right? If we look at like leaders like Virtuals, for example, they've kept on iterating. And where they've iterated the most is still kind of like on the token launch section. And I think that while that is incredibly important and very native to crypto, you need to lead with products. And this is where I'm going to zoom out and give a very kind of like holistic take here, which is when OpenAI came out with image generation, do you guys remember the Studio Ghibli trend where it just like was dominated your feed? Guess how many users they signed on, paying users they signed on in 30 minutes? Any guesses? Above or, do you have a guess?
10 million?
Okay.
I think it was 400 million as for the entire process.
For the entire process, yes, but they signed on 30 million in 30 minutes.
Amazing.
Which is just insane. So the point I'm trying to make there is, okay, now they have a massive amount of distribution to test whatever their next feature is, right? And that's really the lesson to learn. Like if you're building a crypto agent, that's amazing, but try and build something that, and this is not new to any of you, that's something people want to actually use, right? Within crypto. And I'm seeing a bunch of teams starting to do this. Now, if I'm going to give you a quick, boring infrastructure side of things, because I think it's important, because it's Web3 after all, there are certain edge cases which not every agent can serve. General agents are going to become super important. You see it in traditional enterprises right now, which kind of like use instances of OpenAI that run privately on their own data. The same thing's going to happen in crypto, and I'm wondering how that manifests at the edge. So maybe it's like a personalized model, right? That's run on Varna's data, and people want to kind of like use that and run it locally on their mobile phone. There's loads of really interesting use cases, and I think that's an important kind of like layer to look at.
Totally. Thinking about that specific instance of Ghibli and ChatGPT and the testing ground for their next product, right? It seems like I think about SaaS, and it was like very narrow markets, right? They're attacking very narrow workflows. And I think you can make the argument that agents are just going to run back the SaaS playbook. I think you can make the argument that they're going to take bigger markets. What do you guys think about the markets that these startups, these companies, these agents can tackle?
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in very quickly.
Do it.
I think the most important thing that people aren't talking about is memory and context when it comes to these agents. That's what's going to allow them to grab a much bigger mind share of whatever the hell they want, right? Why do I keep using OpenAI even though they might be better models for coding or whatever? It's because it knows everything about me and what I'm trying to build. Yeah, I'll shut up.
Yeah, maybe just don't touch on that one. I think there's a huge market for basically any businesses that used to be running a SaaS business model, dashboard type of business model, to essentially transition to agent type of workflow. And the TAM is going to be much bigger because historically it's a very small set of professional users who are basically tracking certain dashboards. But then once it basically transition the workflow to be a kind of an agentic workflow, then the barriers to be using the product is way lower. So internally, we're spending a ton of resources on agents. Like a simple example I can give you is the agent that we're building is kind of a price attribution agent. Just very specifically trying to understand, oh, if a token is up 10%, what happened? And back in the day when I was kind of trading at a hedge fund, then this is literally 20 to 30% of my time on a daily basis trying to understand market movements, trying to see whether there's an opportunity for me to come in here to essentially do something. And it's a massive need for every single participant, whether you're a professional trader or you're a retail trader. But it's not very easy to build. Right? If I think back Q4, when we had the kind of agentic boom, there's not enough time for, there's not enough time for everyone to come up with a product that really can do a very good job in terms of actually giving you insights, thinking about how many signals you need in terms of analyzing something that's as sophisticated as that. But also at the same time, the infrastructure, 6 months ago wasn't even there. And then nowadays, everyone is like, every data vendor is transitioning to a kind of an MCP framework, which would essentially make every single developer way less time to essentially experiment and integrate something. And the whole industry from the kind of agentic framework perspective and from a data vendor perspective, if everyone is moving to that direction, the development time for anything is going to be massively, massively reduced. And it's going to really accelerate a lot of the work. And I think that the first step is we're going to see a lot of the specialized agents, right? Trading agents, DCA agents, stuff that give you reminders, understanding your trading behaviors, give you kind of a personalized alerts, all that kind of stuff. Together with that, for example, the price attribution agent that we talked about. And then over time, it is going to be, I think, a kind of a more comprehensive agent that tackles everything. And everything, because people want that experience. And people want to be using that. And the agent or the agent provider that essentially learns all the personal data is going to have tremendous amount of edge. It's just like how some of the massive distribution powerhouses such as OpenAI would essentially have all the historical questions that you've been asking, and nowadays they can personalize a lot of stuff for you. And I think that is a huge opportunity for the crypto agent to essentially have that distribution power and have all the personalization done with all the capabilities in the very, very near future.
Yeah, so bigger markets at the app layer, it seems, are inevitable. Sreeram, what about in infrastructure? Do you see the same kind of winner take most dynamics there, or maybe in terms of verifiable markets? Like, does it have the same network effects?
If you look at the intersection between what agents need to be verifiable or sovereign, so I have this categorization, the trichotomy of agents, 3 types of agents. Number 1, personal agents, right? Agents that help an individual to do some tasks. If you ask, does this need to be verifiable or sovereign? It doesn't need to be that verifiable because mostly, I can run it on client side. I can delegate my trust to AWS or OpenAI or, whoever has my memory and context that I trust them to. So our thesis is likely personal agents are going to remain non-verifiable. So that's first part of the thesis. Then you go into the next category. These are agents of the community, agents of the commons. And a way to think about it is something like smart contracts, right? So think of an eigenlayer contract. It's there. It's there for anybody to use. It's not my contract or your contract. And everybody knows what's the covenant of this contract, and anybody can come and interact with it trustlessly. And so these are agents of the commons. And imagine an adjudication agent. You and I enter into a contract and an agent adjudicates. That agent has to be verifiable, right? Because if it's not, then what are you entering into a contract with? So there are these agents of the commons which need to be verifiable. Do they need to be sovereign? No, usually you need the community to have root to upgrade them. So that's what you need, this second category, the agents of the commons. And then the third category, which I think is uniquely created in crypto. The second one's also very, very strong crypto roots, community-owned agents. The third one is fully sovereign agents. Agents that are not acting on my behalf or your behalf. Once they have enough intelligence and the ability to own property and create companies and contracts, they'll just go off and do stuff on their own. So these agents need to be both verifiable and sovereign. And so this is how we think about it, like these three categories. And each of these categories have very different dynamics. Of course, all of this is separate from like the whole category of like, like you said, SaaS or selling agents taking over the SaaS market, which, may or may not intersect with the crypto world. But inside the crypto world, in 5 years, if we think there'll be smart contracts without AI powering it, I think it's a big mistake. Every smart contract will become smart by integrating AI deeply into its stack.
Totally. We are running up on time here. I do want to talk a little bit about Web 2. I think that they're the elephant in the room. I would just like to quickly know of the big Web 2 giants. This is a very disruptive technology. Maybe we could go down the line. Who's most likely to get disrupted? Who's going to lose their lead?
Because of Web3 or?
Because of the intersection of crypto AI. Or just AI in general, agents, infrastructure.
I think like just based on my experience, like the Bloomberg type of the world would essentially eventually get disrupted if they don't act, because the way that people assimilate information, the way that people interact with information is going to be completely changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think Google's search is absolutely cooked. I think that just to give you a call out, like I'm not even an investor in this company, but it's actually just so impressive what they've done in terms of taking language and using LLMs to distill it down on a variety of ways and then giving that to people as an API unlocks so many use cases. And it's truly so impressive, like the impact and utility that you've given to the space. And I think that we're just going to continue to see these application layer companies come to birth that enable us to do things that would have taken days or analysts or subject matter expertise before. And so, yeah, like traditional data companies done unless they evolve, traditional compute companies done unless they lower their margin. And then, yeah, traditional search is also just absolutely done.
Traditional search is painful. Ejaaz?
There's actually a fun stat around the Google search thing, Casey, where they did a study on people who signed up to ChatGPT, and then they tracked their search queries over time, and it's just down only. It's like down like 40% after like a month of using ChatGPT. Anyway, that aside, I think Apple's AI strategy, whatever that might be, completely cooked. They have had the longest head start ever, and now they're looking into acquiring Perplexity, which is perplexing me, I guess. And I think like one of their last moats that they have is hardware, but ironically, I think that's kind of like one of the parts that Web3 can kind of disrupt the most when it comes to like personalized data and personalized LLMs. But yeah.
So we're in prediction land. I don't have prediction of who's going to get cooked, but here is one. I think in 10, 15 years, we'll have fully sovereign agents owning trillions of dollars. A significant portion of our GDP will be run on fully sovereign agents. That's a prediction.
You guys heard it here first. These guys are cooked. All right, that's all we have time for. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.